Okay, hi guys. So we are just going to go over area of trapeziums again because I haven't seen a lot of people doing the work on it. So I'll be attaching the area of trapeziums. I'll also be putting an extension for those people that did actually finish, so they're actually able to do it that way. So looking at area of trapeziums, what would I do? So you have an area. We want a perpendicular height. They've given us a perpendicular height. I am going to say that's A, that's B. Okay, so what do I do in order to find out that area? So otherwise I could turn it into a rectangle and triangles. But if I do have something that's quite hard to decipher where the rectangle would be, where the start would be. So for this one, it's actually quite hard because it doesn't tell me where it kind of goes down. So I would just say learn the trapezium rule. It's a very useful rule. And it's not that hard to actually make out. So even if you don't fully remember the trapezium rule, you can always just draw out this trapezium. So you've got the height A and B. That's all you really need. And then all you have to do is just remember I'm taking that same trapezium and I'm just switching it and making it upside down. So if I make it upside down, the height is still the same. I haven't changed the height at all. This line, which is currently on the base, would then be at the top. And this one, which is currently on the top, would then be at the bottom. So then it is a parallelogram. In order to solve a parallelogram, I would have to add all of this together. So it's A plus B, B plus A, whichever. Multiply that by the height, which is the perpendicular height, and then divide it all by 2. Okay, because I only want half the shape. I don't want the whole parallelogram because I only doubled it to make my life easier. So I would add those two together and change it that way. And some of you should be able to recognize that even if your trapezium looked like that, you could still extend it. It's still this times the perpendicular, okay? We are going to run through a few examples. So I have a feeling some of you, we weren't able to run through the examples, so you may not have picked up the practice on how to do it. So can you please ensure, even though this one is a right angle trapezium, I still want you to try the trapezium rule. So can you just make sure for all the examples that we do, you do actually look at the trapezium rule? Okay, so just looking at the first one, this is 5, this is 7, this is 6, okay? That's my perpendicular. Because we're only beginning, most of the time they would put a right angle to show that this is perpendicular, but because these are just beginner questions, you can just make the assumption that it is. Okay, so we've got 5, 6, and 7. So if I was to, let's just use a pencil. If I was to extend this, this would be 5 across the bottom, this would be 7, and the height is still 6. So how would I work out this parallelogram? Well, first of all, I'm going to add these two together, which make 12. Okay, because I need to do the 7 plus 5. Okay, that is what I need to do. This is just straight up substituting from the top. But even if I just look at it this way, then I've got 7 plus 5 is 12. I've then got the 6, so I would say 12 times the 6, which is 72. And then I don't want both of them, I only want one. So then I would say 72 divided by 2 would be 36. Okay, that's the same as this. That's exactly the same. And because they went and put all those measurements in, they said centimeters. It is an area, so it is centimeters squared. Okay, should have that down. The next one, I have a right angle trapezium. So there's 4 centimeters up here, 8 centimeters over here, and there is 6 centimeters on the side. So if I was to extend that, so you've got 8 centimeters there, you've got 4 centimeters there, it's still 6 centimeters high. So if I just use this, I've got A, which is the top, which is 4, and then I've got B, which is the bottom, which is 8. Close the bracket, times it by 6, or divide it by 2, because 6 is the height. Okay, so that's if you want to use a formula, obviously you can work it out straight from there. But if you are just using logic and you just want to work through it step by step, that's perfectly fine. Anything that helps you understand and get into it. And if you get this understanding, obviously it's going to benefit you a lot more going down the line. So first thing I want to do is add these up. So I've got 12 again. I'm going to multiply by the height, so 12 times 6, I've already done it out there, which is 72, but I don't want the entire rectangle, I only want half of it. So 72 divided by 2 is 36, and they're still talking about centimetres, so centimetres squared. Okay, sorry, I just went ahead, which I shouldn't have done, but I did. Okay, so these ones first. So I've got a right angle trapezium again. Okay, obviously I'm not going to extend it this way because you notice that your two parallel lines are that way, so I'm going to extend it face up that way. So this will be 1 centimeter, this will be 7, it's still 5 for that perpendicular. Okay, so in this one I've got 7 plus 1 equals 8. So let me just write out the rule for those people paying attention to that rule. So if you can't see where A is, all you need to do is just change the sheet. Otherwise, you can put it that way, or you can put it this way, and you could say, well, A is the top and B is the bottom. So I've got 7 and 1. Okay, so it will be 7 plus 1, and then times it by the perpendicular height, and the height is 5, and then all over 2. Okay, so you've got that. Or if you're thinking about it in a little bit more of a logical fashion, then I would say the entire height of this would be 8. So then I'm going to say 8 times the perpendicular, which is 5, which gives me 40. But I don't want the whole rectangle, I only want half of it. So I'm going to say 40 divided by 2 is 20 centimeters squared. Okay. And then last but not least, this isn't usually a trapezium you see very often because obviously a lot of people like the prettier ones which look like right angles or isosceles, but this is still a trapezium. I still have two parallel lines, I have a perpendicular height, and both those parallel lines are not equal in length. So let's pop that there. Sorry, let's just make that there. So you got 4 centimeters. This is, 3 centimeters, and this is 6 centimeters. You still do exactly the same thing where you would just turn it around. That's 6. This is 4. And you would still get a parallelogram. It will just be more slanted than the right angle or the other one. So looking at your AB, you would put 4 plus 6 times by the perpendicular of 3 and divide that all by 2. If I'm looking at it in a logical fashion, then I would say these two added together would be 10. So you've got 10 times that perpendicular of 3, which gives you 30. But I only want half of that to get the trapezium, so I'm going to say 30 divided by 2 is 15 centimeters squared. Okay, so I've given you a few examples. What I'd like you to do, if you did not do the trapezium work, you need to make sure you now spend that time going through the trapezium work using the actual trapezium rule. So I would like to see you going through these steps. I don't want it to see it split into like a rectangle and a triangle or anything like that. I would like to see you actually use a trapezium rule, because especially if you had a shape like this, then you wouldn't be splitting it into like a triangle, a rectangle, and a triangle. That's just far too much work. You need to learn to practice with the trapezium rule. Okay, for those people that already did it, I will be popping an extension task on. And then, obviously, sorry, those people that want to practice, go practice now. Don't worry about the rest. If you want to watch it, go for you. So this one. So this is for those people that I'm giving you the extension task. Essentially, they've given you some of the information, you need to find out the missing information. So if I have those, if you want to have a go at it, obviously sketch it out, try and work it out, pause the video, I will be going through them anyway, so you can go through it with me or do it by yourself and check. Okay, so area equals 24 centimeters squared. So I know area is A plus B times by H all over 2 equals the area. Okay, so going through this, A is the top one, which is 6, 10 is the bottom one, which is there, times it all by H, divided by 2 is 24. All I'm doing is substituting those answers into this equation they've already given me. So I've got 16H over 2 is 24. I don't want to know what half of this is, so I've just got the 16 and the 2. So otherwise I could multiply by 2, and then I would have 16H equals 48 and then divide. Or you could see that 16 and 2 already have a common factor, so I could just say 8H equals 24. And then from there, I would divide both sides by 3, which then gives me H equals 3 centimeters. Can you please ensure you include your unit of measurement? That would be great. So if you got 3, yay. If you guessed it, no. If you worked out correctly, yay. So for this one, okay, this one is kind of tricky. If anyone actually ever gives you this type of question and they only give you one measurement, then it's probably safe if you're looking at the shape to see what kind of shape it is. So I'm looking at that shape and I can kind of see, I'm gauging, the diagram is never drawn to scale, but looking at that, it looks like they're trying to tell you it's a parallelogram. So I'm going to say the top and the bottom are exactly the same. So when I'm saying my A plus BH all over 2 is area, instead of the A, I'm going to have X. Instead of the B, I'm going to have X. The H is going to be my 4 all over 2 equals 30. Okay, so that is 4 times 2x, because it's 4 and this is 2x, all over 2 equals 30. I'm going to cancel out those 2's there, so that's 4x equals 30. Divide both sides by 4. I will then get x is 7.5 centimeters. Okay. And last but not least, we have this fabulous trapezium. Oh, they've told me this is a right angle, so it's safe to assume that's a right angle as well, because it is a trapezium. And you know a trapezium has a set of parallel lines. And the co-interior would add up to 180 degrees. So that is x centimeters, this is 12 centimeters, this is 6 centimeters, and area equals 48 centimeters. Okay, so I've got A plus BH all over 2 equals area. Okay, so my area is 48 because they've already told me that. My A is going to be x, my B is going to be 12, my H is going to be 6 all over 2. Okay, straight away I can get rid of this and put a 3 instead. So this just becomes an equation. Okay, so we have 3x plus 36 equals 48. Take away 36 from both sides. You are then left with 3x equals 12. Divide both sides by 3. I'm then left with x equals 4 centimeters. Okay, hopefully that should all make sense. So I am giving you guys some extended questions that might ask you something similar to that, or you just have to consider some points and there might be a variety of answers. So can you please ensure that you go through them, take photos and submit before the end of the day? That would be great. Have a lovely day. I'm not sure whether it's going to be sunny or cloudy. The weather seems to be in between, but have a nice time, whatever you do, and stay safe.